Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the latest issue of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine. Now, as per usual with all these videos, if you like them, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course, drop me a comment down below. I love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to helping out the channel too. Now, this week we're on issue 47 of Stormbringer magazine, and it is a scenery issue. So this bit of scenery is a pretty cool one. Now, this is the Nexus Syphon. So the Nexus Syphon is a structure that the Stormbringer Crusades will lay down and then build around their new settlement or fortification. And this Syphon draws magical energy through the realm and then siphons it out into defensive structures and other ithematic buildings, and can be utilised in many different ways. Now, the thing with the Nexus Syphon here is only one of the Mortal Realms novels that I know that it actually appears in, and that is the Dominion book. However, in a lot of the lore, they build up these areas in the new settlements because of the new Guardian statues and stuff like that they have designed and created that had to help protect these new Stormbringer Crusades and the new settlements. So, however, you don't really see them mentioned much more than that. But yeah, they're pretty decent. It's a pretty chunky bit of plastic, really, and can be quite good fun. So you can change it depending on how you want your wind of magic to be utilised. Do you want blue, or do you want to go for, I don't know, if you're going to base a lot of more things in, say, Shaiish, do you want amethyst kind of colours? Would you have, I don't know, more oranges and reds for good old Shaman or something like that, or Akshi, or, you know, your choice. But, you know, pretty cool stuff. They're pretty interesting and pretty different. And I say, it's some chunky plastic. So, a decent bit of scenery kit here, and one of the newer bits of scenery as well that you can get through Age of Sigmar as well. Pretty good stuff. Anywho, moving into this week's issue, first off, we are greeted by the Disciples of Tzeentch. The Disciples of Tzeentch are strange mutants, manic humans, and gibbering demons, all plotting to advance the schemes of Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways. Tzeentch is a volatile deity of constant change who uses deceit and manipulation to further his own position amongst the Chaos Gods. The Disciples of Tzeentch do battle amid a whirlwind of sanity-shattering change magic. Underneath a lurid pink and blue sky, conjured by the arcane workings of sorcerers, avian beastmen march alongside masked humans. So, the Disciples of Tzeentch are very different in a lot of their ways. They utilise this kind of a lot more kind of wavy kind of patterns, as you can see in this sword, carried by this Carpe acolyte, and they utilise Zangors and demonic shaman and the discs of Tzeentch and such like, and loads of demons, pink horrors, blue horrors, the lot. They're really cool. I do kind of like them. They're quite interesting, and it's a very different kind of chaos god as well. So always quite a bit of fun. You do get a bit more information about the different mutants, cultists, sorcerers, and demons that can be utilised within the forces of Tzeentch, and yeah, how they work. So yeah, very different. Then we move on, we get more information about our battlefield in Shaman, so we can utilise regional traits and the power of metal. There is also an image of the new Alchemite War Priest as well from the Cities of Sigmar range. So it's a fairly new kit. I've got one and not finished painting it, but it's a really good one and genuinely interesting as well. And obviously Shaman being a very different realm and a realm of metal does mean that we get a few more information and a bit more regional locations and how different things work and different traits work depending on how you roll. So pretty decent. Then we get information about the Nexus Syphon itself. So the Stormbringer Crusades bring many pieces of arcane architecture with them. One of the first things to be erected in a new settlement is the Nexus Syphon to cleanse the area around it. So these are magical wellsprings. Nexus Syphons are crucial to the safety of the cities of Sigmar that are founded by the Stormbringer Crusades. These magical wellsprings sit within the settlement, harnessing and reinforcing the power of key lines upon which the ley lines, so to say, of which the city is built. The siphon hums and crackles with arcane geomantic energy as it draws up from deep within the earth. Amid a corona of blue-white light, the siphon channels powered outwards to guardian idols that stand vigil along the city walls. So, exactly what I said earlier. So they absorb the energy and then filter it out, kind of like charging up a battery and then the battery being used to disperse energy around. So, yeah, pretty good stuff and quite interesting as well at the same time. You do get to roll a few bits as well, so Sights of Power and Sigmar's Boon, if you wish to as well, for your Nexus Siphon information. Then you get your build guide. Build guide's actually fairly straightforward. These are quite chunky bits of plastic. You can't really go too far wrong with them. Just dry fit them, make sure they're all quite nice and neat. When it's all done, you can have some pretty cool stuff. For how you're going to need to paint it, I personally would assemble each different component. So all of them 4 pillars I would assemble separately, probably, and then not attach them directly to the main ball, not attach them to the ground, because if you're doing it all at once, it can be a bit of a pain to paint. And yeah, anything to make it easier for you to paint is a very, very good thing to do. So the painting guide actually kind of goes through this. It doesn't tell you to do everything in kind of sub builds, but I will say go for the sub builds. It makes life a lot easier. So for instance, if you're painting the actual magical vortex bit in the middle, you could do that completely on its own. Then you're not going to be kind of tainting any of your other paint work with anything. If you want to do it as part of anything, do it as part of the base, so then it sits there and you can kind of get that kind of glow around the base maybe, and make it look a bit more interesting and a bit more intriguing, and like it's more kind of like a magical power is being drawn through and it's visible for everyone to see. But otherwise, I mean, it's up to you how you want to go about doing it. The paint scheme in the magazine does do a decent job, really. It does a good job of a good way of painting it, utilising Runelord Brass and Retributor armour instead of just one of the 2 colours is a very, very good trick to do and makes it look pretty cool. You can get some really, really cool looks out of the good old magical essence, so if you wanted to, and those gemstones. Have a bit of fun with it, take your time with it, and as I say, do it in sub builds. It'll be far, far easier overall to do. Then you get your how to paint guide for a primal lair and azurite fountain. In all honesty, they're fairly straightforward if you've not already painted them. I mean, I must admit I haven't. You can paint them up in pretty interesting ways. So their way of doing it with Cantor Blue for all those kind of jagged stones actually does work quite nicely. It's quite a nice way of doing it. It makes it look very much more unique and a little bit changed and different, and utilising Reichland Fleshshade over Averland Sunset is a pretty good colour scheme and a pretty good way of doing it. And then the fountain itself, I've still not painted mine either of that because scenery takes a back burner in my house, but yeah, you can get some really, really good looking scenery out of all of it, depending on how you want to go about painting it. Have a bit of fun though, and when you're done you might have something like that, which does work very, very nicely. I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty good colour scheme. It works generally quite well, so why not? It's one of the only times I will 100% agree with the paint guide to make everything look nice. This can work very, very nicely for you. There are certain colours I personally would change to make it look a bit different, but that's a really, really good start. If you want to weather things as well, things like Nilikai Oxide does really, really well over certain metals, so it gives you that oxidization. You can use Typhus Corrosion to make it look like corroded metal. Entirely up to you, but that's pretty decent. It's genuinely a pretty good paint guide. Now moving on, we get our scout for the current battle plan for this week. So the battle plan, utilising your forces of order against your forces of destruction. Entirely up to you how you want to go about doing it. A Knight Arcanum for Praetors. Use an Archrevenant. Use Itharia's Guardians. If you're using option 1 and 2, you'd be using the Guardians. Using Tree Revenant, up to you. Personally, I like the Arch Revenant and Tree Revenant option. Works a little bit nicer in my opinion, but you know, not everybody is going to agree with me. Personally, if I was going to go for either one of the, whether you're having the Cunning Crew or Zarbag's Gits, I personally would go with the Cunning Crew. Personally, just the way I feel with it, I'll go with the Cunning Crew. Anywho, moving on, you got your battle itself. So using map 2 and 3 for that one, put your Nexus Siphon in the middle, line your forces up on either side, have a bit of fun with it, enjoy your game, and that's it. So pretty decent. It's a nice way of doing it, so why not? And then moving on, next week we get Boingrot Bounders. I quite like these guys. They're on these squigs because they're quite funky, they're quite unique, and very, very, very different, which is what I like with the Gloomspite Git range. And then the week after, in week 49, we get Spite Revenants. So this will go with our Tree Revenants, obviously, that we've had not long before. And yeah, it's pretty good. So we're getting some decent minis out of all of it. We're getting some really, really good bits and kit, and it's going to be a really, really good time. Now, talking about it being a good time for good old Warhammer fans, if you're into it, Warhammer The Old World is becoming available on the 20th of January. Chances are it's going to be a pain in the ass to pre-order it anywhere. There are still a few small third-party retailers that have a few left, so worth checking it out if you want to get your hands on the Kingdom of Bretonnia or the good old Tomb Kings of Khemri boxes. They are going to be tough to get hold of, and they are expensive, so you know, it is what it is, but it's going to be a really, really good time. Obviously, there is going to be a new Partworks magazine going into trial soon as well, which is Warhammer 40k Combat Patrol. Really, really good stuff as well. So good times to be a Warhammer fan. And then obviously we have a load more releases to come out through the year. I think this is going to be a really good year for Warhammer, in my personal opinion. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some really, really good stuff, but we'll have to wait and see. But otherwise, thank you very, very much for watching, and I will see you sometime soon. Bye bye now.